Hey, it's Tim.
And it's Amy from GoWithLess. We're glad you're here. In this week's video, we're going to be talking all about our March spending. We're two full-time nomadic travelers visiting the world on a budget. We hope you watch the whole video.
In 2015, Amy and I retired in our late 40s, and in January of 2020, we sold our home and became full-time nomads. On the third Wednesday of every month, we're here on our channel talking about our early retired nomadic spending. We target spending about $4,000 a month. So far, we haven't been doing so well with this budget, and we'll tell you today how we're doing this month.
Before we get into that, let's talk about where we are and where we've been in the month of March. So here we are in Scottsdale, Arizona. You last saw us in this exact same location on a house sit back in December 2020, January 2021 over the holidays when we put out a few videos here. So we're back at this repeat house sit. It feels very, very comfortable. This feels kind of like our pre-fire home. We have this big giant home with a great kitchen. This feels a lot like that. And we also are used to the bed, the dog, the pets, the neighborhood, all of that. And so it's really just nice that we don't have to come back to our home to feel home, like that comforting feeling of home.
Couldn't agree more. This is just, it feels like we're back in a place that we know and like and love. And so we're thrilled to be here.
Yeah, and then, okay, where were we in March? As we were talking about this video, we were really blown away that we were in Mexico in the first half of the month, and that was only a month ago. So we had 8 full weeks in Guadalajara that came to an end on March the 14th. We hopped on a plane to Tampa to get to a house sit in Largo, Florida, and then back on a plane at the very end of April where we got to our sit in Scottsdale. Now, it has just been not even a month ago that we were in Mexico. Doesn't that feel like a year ago?
It feels like a lifetime ago. So I think we like to say that we're slow mads. We're sort of traveling the world at a slower pace. Well, over the course of the past 6 weeks, our travel has been quick. We were in Guadalajara for a couple of weeks. We're in Tampa for a couple of weeks. We're in Scottsdale for a couple of weeks. So this is certainly faster than we're used to traveling, and I think that's part of it. Also, we've done a lot of things between coming back from Mexico to the States. I had surgery on my face. We'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah. So we've had a lot of activity in the past 6 weeks, and it's just been fast and furious.
Including your birthday was in March.
Including my birthday, which I think we talked about that in last month's spending video. And I celebrated my birthday early in March. We had some friends that came to see us in Mexico. We had a fantastic time. We did the tequila train. We're not going to talk about that this month so much because we spent that money last month. It was a phenomenal experience. We had friends that were there for an entire weekend. Great time. So we had a fantastic and very busy March.
Okay, so let's talk about our spending. Our number one category, no doubt about it, it's food and dining. We keep having this come up to the top, and we say that we're not leading the cheapest retirement, we're leading the best retirement. And this category coming up top lets you know that we are not reining it in and having a frugal, crazy retirement. We could still live really well. And again, you're going to see what our spending looks like. So it's $1,575, close to 30% of our entire spend for the month. That breaks down to $1,414 for dining and $160 on groceries. Now, our four most expensive meals for the month of March, 3 of those were taking out another couple. So we're going to start with number 1, which was just a casual meal at the beach. Frenchie's at Clearwater Beach was $171. We took out our friends who we were house sitting for. Not only are they good friends from Denver, they've been very, very generous with us, and they left us a ton of food at their house sit, so we didn't even go grocery shopping really much at all because we relied on some of what they had. So we took them out for several meals to kind of make up for that.
Yeah, it seemed appropriate. One of the other big meals that we had was a meal out in Guadalajara with our friends that came to see us. We purchased that meal for the entire group. It was $103 for the entire table. That included alcohol, and it was a multi-course meal. So phenomenal deal in Guadalajara. So
good value.
Good value, yep.
And then our first sushi meal in maybe 8-9 months, $82 at Pete's Sushi near, I guess that was in like Indian Rocks Beach or something like that in Florida, and it was absolutely delicious.
It was phenomenal. Yeah. Our friends who turned us on to this place, our friends who we house sit for, turned us on to this place.
Yummy.
And they post pictures regularly of food that they have there. We're like, we want to go there.
We want that.
And our meal was fantastic. It was, if you've ever seen any of their, you probably haven't seen their postings, but anyway, fantastic. Here's the thing, in Mexico, we haven't had great sushi. I'm sure it exists with all the water that's in Mexico. It has to be there, but We haven't found it, and this
We
was
didn't look
great.
hard.
We haven't
didn't
looked
look
hard. That's exactly
and
right.
this $82 sushi meal was 4 rolls and 1 beer. That's it,
Yeah.
and a tip. So the cost in America is they're very very high. And again, this is at the beach at high time. So yeah, so that was reflected in this high category. And then we also took our friends out for brunch, $81 at a really nice brunch place that was really really nice. So and when Tim mentioned our friends came to visit us, they drove like 5-6 hours to come. So very very happy to have them with us.
Of course, yeah.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah, did we cover how much we spent?
We did.
In dining and
We
grocery?
did.
All right, cool.
Category number 2 is health and fitness. $1,325 or close to 25% of our budget. The number 1 there is $891, and that is your face.
Yeah, so I had surgery on my face. So I had this thing on my face for a while. It had been there, I think, for a few years. It had been something. And then when we were in Guadalajara, it started changing, and it started changing quickly. And so I'm like, something weird is going on here. I probably should have gone to see the dermatologist while we were in Mexico, but I waited. And as soon as we got to Tampa, I set up an appointment, I think 2 or 3 days after I got there. Luckily, I was able to get in to see a dermatologist. He did a biopsy on my face, and they sent that off to pathology. About a week later, I got the results back via email. It says, hey, you've got something here in your patient portal. I go in and look, and it looks like it is cancer. I call them immediately and say, I have a deadline. We're leaving in a few weeks. And they call me back the next day and say, yeah, you do have cancer. You need this Mohs surgery thing. It looks like the earliest we can schedule you is April the 19th. And I say, that doesn't really work with our schedule. Is there anything we can do sooner? Luckily, this is a giant practice. I suggest anywhere within 2 hours. If there's something, I'll take it. And they're like, well, this may sound crazy, but if you're available tomorrow, 2 hours away, you can drive and we can perform the surgery tomorrow on your face. So I sign up for that, and we go the next day. I have the surgery, and the way the surgery works is they cut you open, they remove what they think is cancerous, they send it back and they look at it, and they send you out to the lobby with your face or whatever they've cut open, still cut open. So you're just sitting there waiting. It took me, I think, 2+ hours of waiting in the lobby before they call me back in and say, okay, you're good to go. That 1 slice, no more cancer. We're going to sew you back up. They sew me back up, and then I go home. Yeah. And so my face currently looks pretty nice. So the surgeon did, I think, a really good job. And underneath this Band-Aid, I probably wouldn't be offended if I showed it to you now, but I'm trying to keep it nice and lubricated with some Aquaphor, so hopefully it heals nicely, and next month you'll get a reveal and see what my scarring looks like, which hopefully is minimal.
And they're wanting to get these clean margins. And when Tim says we went, I think you're using the royal we, because I couldn't go. Since we were on a house sit, they said this could be 6 hours for us to do slice after slice and get these clean margins. And it's 2 hours each way. So you can't be gone that long on a house sit. There could be 10 hours. So I said, why don't you go up by yourself? If you need to go to a hotel that night, certainly go ahead and do that. But I got to stay home and be responsible. So we did that. I'm going to talk a little bit about, so the $891 covers the first appointment with a dermatologist and the biopsy. It also covers his surgery. Now, this wasn't covered by our IMG healthcare. We have a whole video about that. See, this was squamous carcinoma, which is different than another skin cancer Tim has had in the past, basal cell carcinoma.
Yep.
Is that right?
I've had them all. Not all, actually.
And the thing with I'm under the impression that how skin cancer kills you is because they said it's very, very close to your bones. So if you have this untreated, or if it goes it can get into your bones to become bone cancer. And then I looked this up at night, and I was up for the whole night because I was so worried. I'm like, you got to get this taken care of right away because we don't want this spreading any further. So you got that done. And it wasn't covered by our health insurance because he's pre-existing conditions on that. This is not an ACA plan. This is an expat plan, and that's just how that goes.
And I'm kind of thrilled with the price point. So the fact that everything came together so quickly, and I had surgery on my face, $891 seems like a bargain. And so overall, I'm thrilled with that price point.
That was a cash price, a discount for cash price.
That's right.
$205 was our insurance monthly premium. We're really just using that for major catastrophic stuff. Hopefully we never need to use that, but again, it's not going to cover this. $129 for pharmacy. He needed to be on antibiotics for this. We have just some basic, while we're back in the States for the first time in 4 months, we stocked up on a whole bunch of stuff, and that's all in the pharmacy. That's things like toiletries, any prescriptions, stuff like that. And then $44 was an eye doctor in Mexico.
Yeah, so I think I'm falling apart. When we were in Texas, when we went to San Antonio for our residency visit, I started seeing these like floaties in my eyes. When we came back to Mexico, nothing I could still see. It's just weirdness. I went to see an ophthalmologist, an eye doctor, not the person who prescribes glasses, but an actual doctor. And so she looked at my eye, got in there and looked around and said, yeah, this is just something that happens. It happens to people when they're about 55 years old. Strangely, I'm 55 years old. Apparently, when you turn 55, this happens to you. And,
on your birthday.
On your birthday. And so this the stuff behind your eye like breaks loose, little floaties, and then they're there, and your brain ultimately just adjusts to it. And that was sort of her thing, is you don't have a detached retina or anything that you have to worry about. This is just something that over time your eye will adjust to this issue that's going on. But yep, that's what it is.
And you don't need to do anything to fix it.
Nothing to fix it. Just keep your eye on it, or literally, and that's it.
$44.
$44.
Okay, $32. We visited a place called Salud Digna. There are several of these in Guadalajara. As far as we understand it, this may be a chain around Mexico. We've only needed it in one place, and this is where we did several things. Number one, it's a lab, so you can go in. You don't need any doctor's notes or prescription orders to get blood work and things like that, which is really unusual because in the United States you do need a doctor's note, and that can be not only expensive to have the doctor's note, but also the tests themselves. So here's where you can go for maybe your mammogram, x-rays, stuff like that. But both of us had our COVID test there. It was $10 each. And then I also had a blood test. My diabetes number was
the COVID test to come back to the States.
That's exactly right. So in order to fly back in March, we needed a negative COVID test. We got that, an antigen test there. I had a couple things. We both had COVID antibodies tests because we wanted to see if Tim in the past in the U.S. has had Red Cross blood draws, and they were able to say you have the antibodies, it's from the vaccine, and you didn't have COVID, is what we can see based upon this. So we were interested in that information in Mexico. They didn't break it down like that. They just said you have sky-high antibodies, so we have been boosted twice now. So we don't know if we've ever had COVID. We're still curious. I guess we're never going to know because we keep trying and we haven't caught it. So yeah, we don't know. So we didn't feel like we did, but we're just curious with all these asymptomatic people. So so then I also had a blood draw for A1A, which is a marker if you are pre-diabetic or diabetic, and it was a teeny tiny bit high for me in September, the last time I did my blood draw. So while we were there, I did it for like $4 or $5. Thankfully, it has come down a little bit, which is surprising given all the sugary drinks I was drinking in Mexico. Not the alcohol, but just they have a lot of great beverages, non-alcoholic beverages, and agua del dia, love it, lemonade.
So we netted out, we are huge fans of Salud Digna. They do amazing things for very affordable prices, and it's just very easy to make it happen. And then to wrap up this category, I got a haircut when we were in Tampa for $23, and that rounds out health and fitness.
Okay, category 3, home and lodging, $1,121. That is 21% of our budget. Our rent was $609 for the first 13 nights of March at our Guadalajara same apartment that we've been at for 8 weeks. We negotiated a better deal than that directly off of Airbnb. And Tim paid $395 for a Capital One Venture X card. He's going to talk about that in a second. And then $117 is just our monthly for our storage unit with a 5x10 storage unit. And then our scanning service, which is for our mail service. We weren't getting our mail while we were out of the country, so they scan every single piece of mail, just the envelope if we want to have them open it and scan it. We pay like 50 cents a sheet, so if there's something that looks important, we go ahead and take care of that. That is in that category. And why don't you talk about the Capital One Venture X?
Yeah, so Venture X, $395 is the annual fee. We just arbitrarily stuck it into home and lodging because the way the card works is you pay the annual fee and then you have $300 worth of credit that's sitting there for their travel portal. We intend to spend this on hotels at some point during the year. We will spend that $300, and then $95 just lives here as well, just for the heck of it. And so that's why it happens to be here in this category. We're also going to talk about some other features of the card below that came. And so when we talk about airfare.
Okay, well, there's not a lot from you about the Capital One X.
Not a lot. So it's a great card. It's a fantastic credit card. This is the cheapest card, by the way, on the market. If you're interested in the Priority Pass, which gives you lounge access at airports.
Which we are interested.
We are very interested. This is the very most affordable way to have access to a Priority Pass that exists. So this card is, if you take advantage of all the features that are offered, it's virtually free to have this card in your wallet, and I'm thrilled to have it. Our address potentially provided some challenges. We overcame those hurdles, and we're happy to have this card in our wallet. Happy to be giving them $400.
And there are 3 high-fee annual credit card fees that we pay. That's one of them, the Chase Reserve, Chase Sapphire Preferred Reserve, and the Amex Platinum. All of these are high-fee cards. We find that we get outsized value for spending those fees, so that makes sense, and we look at that to see if that makes any sense, and they all have. I'm going to put a link to that Capital One Venture X in the description below, so if you're interested, if you would use our link, we would greatly appreciate it. It's still a good deal on a card, right?
Fantastic deal. It's not as good as it used to be because they were giving away a lot of points and perks, but it's still a fantastic deal when it was new. Yep.
When it was introduced at Christmas time. Okay, category number 4 is auto and transport, and that is $532. Now, this is a lot of like kind of cockamamie things happening in this category, and here's a good place to say we're not breaking down every single thing that we purchase in the category, just some of the more notable stories. So if it doesn't add up totally, if sounds like we're missing things, we are, because we're not going to share every bottle of water that we purchase throughout the entire month, or the video will be 4 hours. So at 10% of our spending, we have airfare, $494. That includes, we're going from Barcelona to London twice this summer. That is one of those flights on Vueling. The other one is going to be in our April spending. That also includes us paying for a check bag each. Then we're going to be flying from Rome to Washington, D.C. in September. We used United points to pay for that, but this is for the airline taxes on United. And then we're flying from Washington, D.C. to Charlotte, North Carolina at the very beginning of October, and we paid for that with cash with BOGO, buy one, get one free, due to the Southwest Companion Pass. Tim's going to talk about a big credit that we had, but I'm also just going to round out a little bit. We had $124 in Ubers. All of those are in Mexico, where Uber is very affordable, but that was like a $15 ride to the airport we arranged privately, and then 3 trips, not round trips, 3 trips an hour away to the town of Chapala, where we dealt with our Mexico immigration. We're going to talk about that in a future video. We had gas for $115. That was entirely in Florida, and gas is really expensive here. That was a bit of a bigger car as well, so it probably ate a lot of gas. And then we have a bus ride in the UK in June that we prepaid. That's just an hour bus ride for $76 for the 2 of us to get from London to Oxford for, like I said, about an hour, 90 minutes, prepaid for that. So why don't you talk about
so I'll talk about the wacky credits. So the first and the biggest of those is going to be, we got that the Capital One Venture X card came with a perk. This is no longer a perk, but when it was still available, it was an Airbnb. They called it vacation rentals. So if you spent money at Airbnb or what's the other big VRBO or several others, you would get $200 back. So strangely, the Venture X card chose to give me $200 back when I bought the Vueling airfare on the Venture X card, attempting to meet the minimum spend. So they just went ahead and gave it to me for some other travel expense. So I was happy to take that. So I got $200 of credit associated with that Vueling flight that just came back to me. We also got this is another strange one. We got $57 back on United for the taxes associated with our Mexico flight. So when you are a resident of Mexico, you are eligible for reimbursement for taxes. I think it's only in one way. Like when you fly into Mexico, I believe that's the only eligibility that exists. I went ahead and asked for my taxes back on my flight from Mexico back to the States, and United gave me back one of our flights. I think it was mine. They gave me $57 back. For Amy, they said, no, that only applies in one direction. So I still don't know what the deal is, but we got $57 back for Mexican taxes. We'll take that. That's off the airfare. And then we also got $25 of remaining credit we had on our Amex Platinum card. They give you $200 a year worth of what they call incidental credits. Ours happen to be tied in with Southwest Airlines, and so I probably shouldn't have paid cash for the Southwest flight, but nonetheless, we paid about $100 for our Southwest flight and got $25 back, wiped out the remainder of our American Express credit, so we no longer have any of that credit left to spend, and we'll be spending points solely on Southwest for maybe years to come. And so so that rounds out all the weird
Especially
credits
since we're
that we
not
have.
in the U.S. so much.
That's right.
Okay, category number 5 is miscellaneous, $523. We paid for our daughter to come visit us in Barcelona. We found a low-cost carrier called Level, and she'll be flying from the U.S. to Barcelona round trip, $523. We're super excited to see her.
Can't wait. Yep.
Okay, category number 6 is shopping, and that is $212. I actually had a $90 credit I've been carrying around for years to Nordstrom, and we went and did a little shopping when we were in the Tampa area. So I stocked up on my undergarments, and there are 2 places where I really am not super frugal, and that is on comfortable shoes and undergarments. These are very important to get the right thing. So I don't go cheap there. So even with the $90 credit, I still spent $158 out of pocket for that, and worth spending. And I only do it like every. Last time I did it was in 2019.
And then the rest of this category was just some miscellaneous stuff that I bought. I don't even know what it is. One of the things I bought was like Quicken for $30, and my virtual machine for $15 or something like that. And then I bought some other stuff that sort of rounded out this category.
Okay, category number 7 is entertainment, $41. Because Tim was off to his Mohs surgery, I hosted a GoWithLess event.
Amy decided to go putt-putt while I was having my face cut open.
That's right. So it was really close to the house, so I was able to duck out for the nicest mini golf course I have been on in memory, and did a really fun 5-person GoWithLess event while we were there. We had some really fun GoWithLess events in Florida. We had, I think, 4 of them.
It's fantastic.
At least, that I could think of, and they were super fun, really good people out there. And so that was, like I said, that was $16 for just one round of golf, mini golf. But it was really beautiful. It was at the beach. Here we were on like a Friday afternoon, maybe like 1 o'clock or something, 2 o'clock, just at the beach playing miniature golf. We're like, this is living. This is why we are so excited to be early retired and talking about this on YouTube, is this. Poor Tim is supposed to be there. Of course, yeah.
It was fine. So actually the surgery and the skiing, even though it left a weird thing in my face, and it was no big deal. So I'm glad it's over, and I'm glad Amy got to play putt-putt.
And we're seeing that this category is going to be ticking up soon. So that's, yeah.
So I'll do the last 2 categories. I'm sorry.
Okay, great. Go for it.
Yeah.
No, go for
So
it.
the last 2 categories are Amy's Google Fi. They
It's bills and utilities.
Bills and utilities.
Category
I'm sorry.
8.
Category 8 is bills and utilities. So she spent $17 on her Google Fi service, which was unusually low. We realized that, and it caught up to us this month. So they missed, I think, a $20 charge. But
Like the base fee is $20.
So it's weird.
Yep.
So we only paid $17 for Google Fi in the month of March.
And it's going to be $20 higher in April.
That's right. And then our last category is taxes, which we spend $0 in taxes for the month of March. So thrilled with that. So that brings us to how much spending?
$5,346. Now this is way over our $4,000 plan that tracks us year to date for $15,818 against $12,000 of where we were budgeted to be. That means we're at 132% of our spending. And just a little conversation about that. So January, we spent an enormous amount of money for our upcoming 5 cruises. We fully have paid off 4 of those cruises. Still one just has a couple $100, like $200 or so of gratuities, but otherwise 52 nights of cruising is done and in the bag. February was about $2,000 out of pocket for our Mexico residency, ate a big chunk there. March was a humongous chunk, as well as a whole bunch of prepaid
Lots of
things.
flights.
Yeah, from our daughter's gift to flights ourselves. So a Capital One card. So some really big items that are not normal. This isn't like normal spending stuff. Yeah. And then April is I'm just going to give a heads up. I'm going to say this is the time to subscribe, because we are how are we going to do for for 2021. Make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell here. Hopefully you like the video, even though we're over budget.
So our excuse for the last 3 months has basically been a lot of this is prepaying for things that are going to happen later in the year. So hopefully that plays out. And in the months where so all of our lodging, so if you think about it, all of our lodging is covered between now and
October 1st.
October the 1st. All of our transportation is covered between now and October the 1st. So
we don't have a car in any of this.
We don't have a car. So really the only thing that we have left is food.
A lot of food.
A lot of food.
So and a lot of entertainment.
Food and entertainment are the really big categories for us. That for the remainder of the year, or I should say until October the 1st, that are going to be in the mix. And so we'll see how it plays out.
And also we're on the cruise, so we have 52 nights of food are even covered, but we're in Europe. We love food. Obviously, we talk about this all the time. So so we still might have some high food expenses in Europe. We're going to have to see. So again, we hope you're joining us for the ride. And what we want to talk about is where we're going to be for the rest of April and May. Yeah? Okay, so here we are in Scottsdale until April 20th. We head to New Orleans for a week, and then we head to Fort Lauderdale for 2 nights before we hop on a transatlantic boat that's going to take us from Fort Lauderdale to Barcelona. We are going to stop in 2 spots on the Canary Islands, in Valencia, in Ibiza, and then we end up in Barcelona for like 3 nights. We go to a house sit in Sitges, Spain, mid-May, until, I don't know, like early June. That's when our daughter will be with us. So if you're in any of these spots, I want to know about that down below. And I do want to talk just for a second before we're wrapping up about our time in New Orleans. On March 14th, 2020, as the world just shut down, we flew from a different house sit here in Phoenix to New Orleans. We get to this our friend's apartment. She lives in Denver. We were at her New Orleans apartment, and the world had completely shut down, and we were there for, I think, about 6 weeks. I guess, yeah, it was 6 weeks. So we are doing a do-over. We're back at her house while she's in Denver, and we're going from Phoenix to New Orleans. It seems like we're getting our life back on track 2 years later.
This feels like a relaunch of our original plans, and so we understand that COVID is not over, and so it still exists, and so we're still very cognizant of that. But it feels like our plans pretty much stopped when New Orleans happened, and our nomadic life isn't what we had envisioned. We've been in the United States, we've been a little in Mexico, but we had planned to be all over the world over the course of the last 2 years, and COVID/we decided to sort of slow our roll, and now we're ready to relaunch, and we're kind of going back to New Orleans to relaunch our plans. And so this just feels almost like it was meant to be, that we're back there relaunching our life, our nomadic life.
It's very exciting. We are really, really excited for what's coming up this summertime. And even just, and we're finally hitting our weather spot. It's beautiful weather. We're here just in light layers, enjoying
We've had great
every
weather
minute.
Since the first of the year, so
I'm afraid to say, we've had such bad weather last year that we're so far so good for this year. So here's what we want to know from you down below. Where are you in April and May? We're doing a lot in the GoWithLess Facebook group. So even though you don't see us here, I'm really, really active over there. So I'm going to put a link to that group as well down below. So if you're not in the group, please join us over there. We're doing all kinds of meetups. So let me know where you are down below. I want to know. Hasta luego. See you in a month.
Adios.